Hey, welcome back. We're still working with relative pronouns and adjective clauses, and we're learning to identify and understand which relative pronoun to use, depending on what the antecedent is and depending on the internal structure of the adjective clause. Okay, so we're going to do a little review here, but first I'm going to show you a chart that we have already seen. Okay, a little review. If it's a human, if our antecedent is human, it is proper to use either who, whom, or whose. Okay. Remember the difference is if this pronoun, relative pronoun, is acting as a possessive, we're going to use this one. This is a possessive. If it's acting as a subject, or another way to say this, if it's doing the action, we use the pronoun who. And if it is the object, or if there's a linking verb used, okay, linking verb, or another way to put it is if it's receiving, and I'll spell it correctly this time, receiving the action, then of course you use the object whom. All right, so that's a little bit of review. And then we also talked about if it's non-human, we're going to use the word that. Now there is a distinction of when to use that and which, but that's pretty complicated, and we'll look at that later. But right now, just know that if it's non-human, you probably are going to use the word that unless it's a possessive, and then you're going to use whose again, because that's the only relative possessive pronoun we have is whose. Okay, so even if it's not human and it's possessive, we're going to use the word whose, as you can see here. Okay, and then if it's spatial, if it refers to some place like in space or a location, we're going to use where. And then if it refers to time, or what we call temporal or time, we're going to use when. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these, and we're going to go through, and I'm going to go through these and talk about these sentences with you, and we're going to do the first 3 or 4 together. But it says basically underline all the adjective clauses in the following sentences. The seeds that you gave me have not sprouted. So they're just asking you to identify the relative clauses. I'm going to talk about what type of relative clause they are in some different terms so that I want you to still be able to understand. Oops, let's go ahead and move that back because we don't want to have to put up with that. So 1 second here. Okay, so there we go. We're going to turn the touch off so I don't do that again. Okay, now, my wife, whose enthusiasm knows no limits, has invited all of our friends over. So my wife is the antecedent. Okay, wife is the antecedent. And then this is telling me a little bit more. This is the relative pronoun, whose enthusiasm knows no limits. Okay, that's the adjective clause. Whose is the relative pronoun referring to wife because it's human, but whose enthusiasm knows no limits. Well, the wife is the one that has the enthusiasm, so we use the object, okay? Has invited all of our friends over. I couldn't keep up with the pace that they were setting, okay? Remember, the relative pronoun always immediately follows the antecedent. So the pace is the antecedent. It's not human, so I would use the relative pronoun that they were following. So the relative pronoun, I'm going to put the underline the antecedent in blue for you, and I'm going to underline the relative clause in red. That they were setting. Why did I use that? Because pace is not human. All right, so I would use that. All right, well, let's take a look at a couple more. And it looks like there's quite a few of them, so we're going to do this whole page together and talk about each one, and then you're going to have to do all the way up to 20 by yourselves, okay? So let's take a look at this first page, first 8 of them, okay? The track where we were running is in excellent shape. Okay, so the track is obviously the antecedent. Okay, now it's not human, so I could use that, but I know that it's talking about someplace else. Okay, it's a place. So where is used. Okay, where we were running. Okay, it tells where the track is. Okay, it's a place. You have to use where. Okay, so where or when. The track that we were running is in excellent shape. It's just where sounds better. Okay, it's a place. The soloist was a pianist whom I had never even heard of before. Well, this is renamed several times actually. The soloist is renamed with the pianist, so I know that the pianist or the person that plays the piano is the soloist, but then the pianist is also described further, whom I had never seen before. So this is the relative pronoun, pianist. The antecedent. The relative pronoun is who I have never heard of before. Now, the pianist did not do any action. You are the one that had never heard of it before. So whom is not doing anything. Okay. So it's the object. It's kind of the receiver of the action not being done on it. Okay. If that makes sense. It's just a little complicated to say because it's not receiving an action, but it's certainly not doing an action. So you would use the object whom. Okay. They damaged the gear that raises the front ramp. Okay. They damaged the gear. Gear is the antecedent. It's not human. That raises the front ramp. Okay. That is an adjective clause that describes which gear. What gear? The one that raises the front ramp. Okay, so that's the adjective clause. He was a rare builder. Oh, rare builder antecedent. A builder who what? Who never cut corners on anything. Now I'm going to use who because this person is the one that is never cutting corners. It's doing the action. Okay, it's the subject of the verb. It's not done to him. Someone else isn't doing it, but the builder is. Okay, so you use the who, the subject. We need to fly to Dallas. Oh, Dallas. We need to fly to Dallas. It's a place. Oops, antecedent. So we use where the meeting will be held. Okay, and of course this is the adjective clause. The accident caused a concussion. Oh, a concussion is the antecedent. It's not human. That is a relative clause. Has temporarily affected his short-term memory. Okay, so that's that's how I would do it. Go ahead and finish these up 1 through 20, and take a look at the relative pronouns. They're not hard to identify. There are these words right here, but I want you to be able to explain why that relative pronoun was used as opposed to a different one. So if whom is used, try to figure out or identify why it's the object of the sentence. If who is used, try to figure out why it's the subject of the relative clause or of the adjectival clause. Or if it's whose, try to tell why it's a possessive of the adjectival clause. Okay, so all these are relative pronouns. They start the adjective clauses, and try to figure out why these words were chosen in the sentences when you identify where they are. Okay, so go ahead and do what it says. Underline the relative clauses. Look at the antecedents. You can look at the antecedents, and you can figure out why that relative clause was used to create that adjective clause. Okay, so you have 20 of them to do, and if you have questions, obviously come before class or after school, and I will help you out. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video when we continue our discussion on adjective clauses.